communications in the Strip. Houthi snipers attack populated areas in Taiz Governorate and kill one girl. Thousands of displaced families in Al Mahra Governorate face dire humanitarian situation. Good evening, welcome to Yemen Today News. I am Abirali. The Israeli occupation knocked out internet and communications in the Gaza Strip in a stepped bombardment Friday night, largely cutting off its 2.3 million people from contact with each other and the outside world and creating near blackouts of information. This came as military said it was expanding ground operations in the city. This report has more.
Ahead of a ground incursion in the Gaza Strip, Israel plunged a 2.3 million person enclave into a complete internet and communications blackout. Terrified civilians lost contact with each other and the outside world. The Israeli military announced it was moving closer to an all-out invasion of Gaza, where it has vowed to crush Palestinian resistance group Hamas. 4 hours after nightfall, the sky over Gaza City had been ignited by explosions from incessant airstrikes. The shelling caused complete disruption of internet, cell phone, and landline services. Because of the cutoff, casualties from the strikes and details of ground invasions could not be instantly reported. Some satellite phones remained operational. Palestinians were driven into isolation after most electricity was shut off weeks ago, huddling in houses and shelters while food and water supplies ran low. Ground forces in Gaza were expanding their activity Friday evening, according to Israeli military spokesperson Daniel Hagari, and acting with great force to fulfill the war's objectives. The Hamas Media Center reported violent overnight confrontations with Israeli forces in many locations, including an Israeli invasion east of the Burayj refugee camp in central Gaza. Israel has gathered hundreds of thousands of troops around the border in preparation for a major invasion. Earlier today, the military announced that ground troops had undertaken their second hours-long assault inside Gaza in as many days, targeting scores of Hamas targets in the last 24 hours. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, the Palestinian death toll has surpassed 7,300 people, with more than 60% of those killed children or women. A siege of Gaza has resulted in depleting supplies, and the UN has warned that its assistance operations, which support hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, is crumbling due to dwindling fuel supplies.
Huge demonstrations erupted in some Arab and Western countries around the world condemning the Israeli occupation genocides in Gaza. Massive marches took place in Jordan, Turkey, Tunisia and other countries to show in solidarity with the Palestinian people and condemning the Israeli barbaric aggression against Gaza. The marches denounced also the brutal massacres committed by the Zionist occupation against the residents of Gaza. The United General Assembly approved with overwhelming majority an Arab resolution which calls for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and allow for the humanitarian aid to pass into Gaza. More on this story is within this report.
The UN General Assembly overwhelmingly approved a non-binding resolution drafted by Arab states calling for a humanitarian truce in Gaza, leading to a cessation of hostilities between Israel and Palestine, the first United Nations response to the war. The 193-member world body adopted the resolution by a vote, with 45 non-participations after rejecting a Canadian amendment backed by the United States. The Palestinian UN ambassador called the General Assembly more courageous, more principled than the divided UN Security Council, which failed in 4 attempts during the past 2 weeks to reach an agreement on a resolution. 2 were vetoed, and 2 failed to get the minimum 9 yes votes required for the approval. Israel's UN ambassador called it a day that will go down in shame, saying after the vote, Israel will not stop the operation until the Palestinian resistance is destroyed and their hostages are returned. Frustrated Arab nations went to the General Assembly, where there are no vetoes, to press for a UN response. And the United Arab Emirates ambassador, the Arab representative on the Security Council, expressed delight at the result. Unlike Security Council resolutions, General Assembly resolutions are not legally binding, but they carry incredible weight and moral authority. Moreover, the 10 elected Security Council members who serve 2-year terms will take the moral authority from the General Assembly and try to break the gridlock on a council resolution. The votes came part way through a list of 113 speakers at an emergency special session of the General Assembly on Israeli actions in occupied Palestinian territories. Jordan's UN ambassador, speaking on behalf of the UN's 29-nation Arab group, called for action on the resolution because of the urgency of the escalating situation on the ground.
Massam Project announced that 6,700 Yemeni children were killed and injured due to mines. This came on the sideline of a photo exhibition held by the project in partnership with Mayun Organization for Human Rights in Aden. The exhibition, which was held under the title "We Move Together to Protect Children from the Danger of Conflict," included a number of pictures illustrating the grave violations that Yemeni children have been exposed to for several years. In Taiz, one woman was seriously injured after being targeted by a Houthi sniper. A human rights source said that one of the Houthi militia snipers stationed in the central security targeted a 22-year-old woman. This source added the woman was hit by a sniper's bullet in the face, chest, and left hand. The Houthi militia stormed a house in Ab-Gavaret and kidnapped 2 children. Local sources said that militia members stormed a house of one resident and attacked women and children after terrorizing them, shooting bullets at the house and besieging it for hours. The sources reported that the militia members tampered with the content of furniture of the house and looted some of them, including the house owner's car. Parts of an ancient archaeological palace in Al-Mahra Governorate collapsed as a result of the Cyclone Tej. Local sources said that a Cyclone Tej caused the collapse of parts of the archaeological fort of Ben Mismar, which is considered one of the oldest forts in Al-Mahra Governorate. The source added that the collapsed fort consists of 3 floors and its construction dates back to hundreds of years. 9 years of conflict have forced thousands of Yemenis to leave their homes and move to other places to seek shelter. Al-Mahra Governorate hosts thousands of displaced families who are living in dire humanitarian conditions. The following report has more.
The war in Yemen enters its 9th year, and with it the country enters new paths of suffering and pain at all levels, especially those related to childhood, education, and the right of children to obtain a good education. Laqa Abdulaziz and her 6 children were displaced to Al-Mahra Governorate. Her children are deprived of the right to education.
None helped me with the report. I have to go to Mukalla and get surgery done. They don't even know how to write their names. I hope the concerned authorities can help enroll them in schools, and I hope they can get an education.
According to statistics from international organizations confirming that about 3 million children in Yemen are out of school, more than half of these statistics are of the displaced. As the ongoing war in Yemen has made many Yemenis unable to enroll their children in schools, Al-Mahra Governorate was a destination for 23,000 displaced people. Many of these children joined the educational process, despite the difficulties and challenges they face, while others are completely deprived of their right to education.
Displaced children need to be enrolled in education so they can continue with their learning.
Al-Mahra Governorate is considered one of the main destinations for Yemenis displaced from conflict areas. Hundreds of children live in displacement camps there. They live a harsh life in which they are deprived of the right to study and education, in light of the absence of an effective role by government agencies and international organizations.
Coming up in the news. Yemeni youth resort to learning English language as to seek better immigration opportunities. Welcome back. The war and hard living conditions in Yemen have pushed the youth to study English language as to seek better job and immigration opportunities outside Yemen. This report has more details.
For many people, language acquisition is a lifeline out of poverty. Being fluent in a foreign tongue can be a gateway to bigger opportunities. With an 8-year-old conflict decimating youth prospects for academic or career advancement, young people are turning to the English language as a means to secure positions abroad.
We headed to the language center to study English, as it is one of the most predominant forms of communication and a prerequisite to securing opportunities abroad and migrating. The war in Yemen is a huge hurdle to our advancement.
Arkan is one of many who sought education as a means for liberation. Young people in Yemen face extreme challenges in improving their economic situation. The youth unemployment rate sits at 35%. Corruption in both private and public sectors is rampant, and many young people feel they have little or no options for securing a steady job. Political instability and ongoing violence further cripple an already weak economic environment.
الأوضاع التي نعيشها في الجمهورية اليمنية
The conditions we face in Yemen in the midst of a war are dire. Unemployment is soaring and many students have turned to the English language to empower themselves.
Just as water is basic to life, education is basic to progress because it provides life-giving support for societal development.
Truck drivers in Abyan Governorate began to strike on Friday evening in protest against what they describe as arbitrariness by armed elements. Local sources said that dozens of fuel trucks began an announced strike in rejection of high fees imposed on them. Drivers complained about illegal levies and inspections, in addition to what they describe as mishandling those in charge of the budgets. Al-Makha witnessed the new interventions in the water sector, which included drilling new wells to improve living conditions. The project, which was implemented by the Global Symposium Office with collaboration with the local authority, included drilling 7 surface wells with a depth of 25 meters equipped with a solar-powered operating system. Local and international rights groups have accused the Houthis of depriving detainees in the militia's jails of basic health care services. This has made those jails a good environment for diseases. This report has more.
Yemeni sources accused the Houthi group of neglect and corruption, which led to the resurgence of the outbreak of many diseases and epidemics among Yemenis, including those detained in the group's prisons amid warnings of a worsening health situation. This came in parallel with international pledges of the continued significant decline in immunization rates, especially in Houthi-controlled areas, which led to the return of many diseases that could have been prevented with vaccines. According to sources, a number of diseases, including skin and respiratory diseases, and other chronic and contagious epidemics have spread among prisoners in Sana'a prisons and other cities as a result of the neglect of the Houthi group, which has complete control over the medical sector and refuses to take any measures or precautions regarding these diseases. Amid the escalation of human rights demands for the release of detainees, activists accuse the Houthi group of concealment of information related to the spread of diseases among detainees in its prisons and preventing them from providing medical care, which led to the death of a number of them. Sources in Sana'a warned that thousands of detained Yemenis are still vulnerable to epidemics and diseases after they spread among them. Houthi leaders who run prisons in Sana'a reject human rights and medical demands to allow visits to prisons, including secret ones, to provide medical care to detainees, as many of them suffer from viral diseases. Health sources in Sana'a accused the Houthi group of looting medicines, medical supplies, and hygiene tools provided by humanitarian organizations to detainees. This comes in parallel with the World Health Organization's confirmation of a significant decline in immunization rates in Yemen, pointing out that millions of children cannot be reached through immunization activities. It warned that poliovirus reappeared during the years 2020 and 2021. And due to this incurable disease, there are 928 suspected cases among Yemeni children suffering from acute flaccid paralysis, which can be caused by the poliovirus.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Israeli occupation steps up air and ground attacks in Gaza and cuts communications in the Strip. Houthi snipers attack populated areas in Taiz Governorate and kill 1 girl. Thousands of displaced families in Al-Mahra Governorate face dire humanitarian situation. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching. It was Abir Ali.